What's up? It's your boy Black C of that RBL Posse. You tuned in to Thizzler. Subscribe below. Nah, that was on my own label. Yeah, that was, I ended up starting up the Right Way Productions. And Hitman album sold. It did real good. He did like 120-something thousand units, and I was strictly out the trunk. I pressed up each one of them, COD, getting cashed out for every last 120 of them from City Hall Records. Walter, that's my guy. I deal with him right now to this day. You know what I mean? He was a good dude, good businessman. Never tried to cheat me or beat me. Always was, straightforward with everything. And to this day, me and him got a good relationship. I still deal with him. And pretty much he pushed the hell out of that Hitman, man, and that flew out the door. That thing, Hitman took off. The youngsters just gravitated towards him. And I mean, you couldn't deny him, man. Hitman was just a lyrical beast, you know what I mean? Him and San Quinn was like my favorite rappers back then. Aside from Mr. C, man, I loved Hitman and San Quinn. It was like my favorite. Hitman being the top for me, you know what I mean? I'm a little biased, but that was my dude. He was killing them. And I mean, he writing that stuff, he get in the studio and knock it out 5-10 minutes. You'd be like, man, how in the hell you coming with that like that and so fast? Like boy was crazy with them lyrics. Yeah, but that was independent. I didn't sign Hitman on to Big Beat or none of that. They wasn't paying attention to it too at the time. They was kind of sleeping on him a little bit. And he came after our album. We was working on the deal. I had dropped it, so he wasn't really on the radar yet. He was still out the trunk. And back then, he had a lot of SoundScan, but it wasn't big. It was a lot of mom and pop stores still around who was just over the counter at the time. Everybody wasn't SoundScanning, like going through Tower or the Warehouse or Camelot Records or whatever that was SoundScanning at the time. So it was a lot of mom and pops that Walter was dealing with from here to the Midwest, all up north, Northwest, whatever. And yeah, he killed them. I met Hitman, he was just walking through the block. They was actually like chasing him. The younger dudes on the block was chasing him home and like trying to beat him up because he was from Sunnydale. He had moved over there from Sunnydale, so the dudes used to pick on him and shit. And my young dude over there, this dude named Mars, he was like trying to start his own little studio up and do like I was doing. He used to always be in my studio asking me, Black, what's that module? What's that keyboard? What's the computer program you're working on? And I'm trying to get my own thing. And he kind of mimicked my studio, had his own little studio down way in the projects, a couple buildings down. And every day at the school, Hitman used to go over there. And he ended up coming over to me when I was sitting in the car listening to beats, me and Mr. C, like, man, I got this dude, Black, I want you to listen to. And I'm like, is that right? He's like, yeah, man. He's like, man, there's a couple of them. He said, but this one dude, man, he dope as hell. He said, but he's kind of scared to come up here because these dudes be picking on him, be chasing him and shit. And I'm like, oh, is that right? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, well, let me hear him. He played a couple of his songs. I'm like, oh, he said some online like I go Yoo-hoo, like Yahoo, or Yoo-hoo, like the Yoo-hoo chocolate milk. He said some line incorporating that in it. I'm like, what the hell? Like he was using all type of movie references, and I was like, oh, this dude is crazy. I'm talking about cereal references with Captain Crunch, and I was just like, oh, this dude is off the Richter. I'm like, man, bring him through. He like, man, he a little nervous. I'm like, man, ain't nobody gonna fuck with him. Tell him to come through. He good. And that next day he came through, and man, I made it known, man, hey, he good around here. Ain't nobody better not mess with Hitman, touch him, say nothing to him. And from then on, man, the block took him in and loved him. Everybody loved him, man, once he was a part of it. And plus he was a soldier too. It was just too many dudes for him to fight. Like, he wasn't no punk. He had them knuckles on him. He done gave a few dudes knuckle sandwiches fucking around with him once he, got his foot planted and got in there. You know what I mean? But yeah, Hit was a fool, man. Yeah, was a little bit different only because, I mean, he worked fast. You know what I mean? I'm a slow worker. I ain't gonna lie, I gotta take the beat home, marinate on it, listen to it a couple times. I might play the beat, looping it over and over for hell of a time. Like he knocking it out and at the session. As soon as he hear the beat, he like get on his pad and pen and he is knocked out, you know? Like him and Mr. C used to be waiting on me all the time. Like, you know what I mean? A lot of people thought he was in our group, but he wasn't. I was just trying to introduce him using our album to pretty much, you know, give him a platform to where I can introduce him to our fans, but I wanted to keep him independent because I already knew what it was gonna do. And pretty much, he worked, man, his work ethic, man, oh man, it just, how fast he wrote, I just couldn't believe it, man. Like, damn, this dude, man, writes so fucking fast. Like, I don't see how he doing this. But his album, we worked on his album, man, we ran through it. He had a whole bunch of songs. There's a bunch of stuff that even I got right now, I still got I probably got like in today's world, like everybody doing 11, 12 songs, I got 2 albums. But back then, you know, 17, 18 songs on one album. You know, that's a double disc nowadays, you know what I mean? But yeah, I got about 16 songs that I'm still sitting on. I just didn't want to drop it due to just, you know, problems just with his family, stuff like that. I didn't want them to think I'm trying to capitalize off his death and stuff, so I just kind of pretty much put it to rest. I play it for myself every now and then, but yeah, I didn't want to put it out. And he gassed on it. I'm kind of pissed off that I can't really put it out there for the fans. I do want them to have it, but I just don't want his family thinking like, you know, coming like looking for a bag, like, oh, you know, we heard them new songs, what's going on? So I didn't do nothing with it. I just pretty much sat on it, you know what I mean? But yeah, he worked, man. And my brother got an album too. We actually got 2 albums. My brother got an album that he's sitting on 11 songs that's real dope that he did with the West Mob dudes. Rest in peace, my boy Chaos and them. Yeah, he was like, he tried to do his little Tupac and Outlaws thing where he got a whole little mob of dudes that he did on his own away from me with my brother. He actually did with TC and an enhancer who used to do my music, do all my mixes and stuff like that. He actually went with my brother and did a whole nother album before he passed away, like right before he passed. So yeah, he was a worker when it came to them lyrics. Back then, nah, it was kind of easy for me. I didn't, you know, especially too, we wasn't using no samples, so I didn't run into none of them, you know, dead ends or roadblocks. But it wasn't no problem. It's just that I had to do all the work myself, all the groundwork as far as the promotion. You know, and back then, you had promo teams who would get out there on the snipe campaign, and I didn't have a problem because the money was coming in. So when the money come in, we'd put a little bit back into it, you know, paying promo companies in Midwest, up north, you know, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, you know, all our top markets, because back then too, I was getting a sound scan from Jason on where we was doing good at. So I was looking at all those markets, and that's where I concentrate the promo at, you know what I mean? I put the money into the Midwest. We was doing good in Detroit. I paid for promo out in Detroit. We doing good in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm putting the promo in Louisville, Albuquerque, New Mexico, San Diego, you know, Phoenix, Arizona, Tempe, Mesa, you know, all that. That's where I was putting the money at. You know, I'll find somebody out there who doing it, or I might ask Walter, man, you know, somebody who out there who you deal with, who work in the stores. And then too, you had the listening stations back then with you could do the price and positioning, the little POP stuff. So you had like options, you know what I mean, to really promote if you gonna put your money back into it. But if you just getting a check and then sitting down, you know, it might stay stagnated. But I was putting that money into, I always put out a campaign on all my albums, man. That's one thing about me. Anything we put out independent, we had the rap vehicles, and we'd get with the promo companies. We'd get into all them programs inside the stores at the warehouse at the time, or Sam Goodies or whoever was offering, you know what I mean, Rasputin's if they was offering some type of program, listening station, just price and positioning in the front of the store, we paying for it. And magazine, on top of the magazine ads too, like the Murder Dogs and 4080s or whatever. We did that. Oh yeah, that all happened before he passed. We was actually, cause he died in '96, so that was 2 years afterwards. We was just we were supposed to have been dropped another album, but we didn't go in the studio to work on the album because Jason wasn't paying us because he was still trying to hold back royalties from the first album. He was still saying, oh, it's still samples that had to be cleared. So me, myself, I wasn't putting up too much of a fight because I had dropped Hitman stuff in '95 and I was doing good. And at the time, I had asked Mr. C if he wanted to invest in the right way. And he didn't want to. He was just kind of like, nah, I'm gonna just support y'all and this and that. But man, I got bills, I'm doing this and that. So he never really got involved with it. So once Jason started holding back royalties, that kind of hurt Mr. C pockets. And me, I was doing good. Like I said, I was over here eating off the Hitman stuff. And then I had NOH in the studio, right, working on stuff, about to drop right behind Hitman. So I didn't put up much of a fight, but I'd go out there to try to argue for a few dollars for him. And Jason would try to nickel and dime us here and there. We'd go out there, argue. He wanted to give us a check for $5,000 and he owe us like 70, 80. And, you know, we go back, see our reports, and be like, man, what's going on? I mean, the SoundScan's showing this, but at the time, SoundScan wasn't the bulk of our sales. It was mainly, you had to look at the shipping reports, because like I said, the mom and pop stores was the ones that was really moving a lot of units over the counter. You had stores like the record store on 3rd Street, who they wasn't using, they wasn't bleeping the barcode, you know what I mean? They was just, you know, hand to hand, you know what I mean? And once we looked at the shipping reports, we were seeing that he was on us more than what he was saying he was on. Like he might say he owe us 60, but he only can pay us, right now he got to hold the funds and put them in the trust account until he clear up the samples and, you know, running all this old drag on us. And at the time we was finding out beside he wasn't on us 60, it would be more like 120 or 90,000 versus him saying, oh man, yeah, this report, man, I owe y'all 30, but really he owe us like 70 something. So yeah, it just got ugly, man, and that's kind of like, you know, that's why I kind of, in a way, blame Jason Blaine, too, for Mr. C's death, because he would have never been up there hustling, because I really wasn't in him to be hustling. But he had to hustle during that holiday season, during Christmas, because he had borrowed like 1,000 from me. He borrowed like another 500 from my manager at the time, Tone, who we had, and he was just doing bad, you know what I mean? And he was like, worried about trying to make that money back to pay us. And he like, man, I gotta pay y'all and this and that, because I tried to pick him up even that day he passed away. I was trying to get him to ride with me out to my auntie house for New Year's. And he was just like, man, I can't do it. You know, I got to pay y'all, owe y'all all this money and this and that. So, and he stayed back to hustle. And that was all due to Jason. I wanna, and come to find out, even after he passed, once we got the lawyers and started trying to settle the situation, we found out he owed us like $675,000, you know what I mean, between both albums. So that's what I say, around 96 when he passed, that was 2 years after the drop, because Ruthless by Law dropped in 94. Hitman dropped in 95, and 96, you know, beginning of 96 is when he passed. So, you know, and I was in the process of buying my house. I was doing, you know, doing well at the time. So, yeah, Mr. C was struggling, and yeah, that pretty much put a damper over our deal and everything. We had the deal set up with Atlantic Records. That was on the table. Nice deal, nice deal. Even though they still worked with me, you know, in 97, we still ended up doing a deal. We had to work it out through 96. You know, I kind of went through a little depression over his death, and had to get back on my feet, get in the studio. Craig Callman was a guy that I meet. And him, like I said, he had made that personal connection with us, man. He ended up getting at me when I was going through that depression and told me, like, you know, Black, I know, you know, you lost Mr. C, but won't you go on and pretty much get in the studio with Hitman? I ain't trying to say I want him to take Mr. C's place or fill his shoes, but I'm still ready to, you know, cut a few corners. We might cut a few dollars back on the deal as far as like what we was offering y'all, because the deal was a multi-million-dollar deal. He was trying to take care of us. So he ended up chopping that down a little bit, but it was still a nice deal. You know, they still gave me like $325,000 for my first album, and from there, as we do good, the second album started at almost like $500,000, and then the third album was like up in like the sevens and shit. So he still did a pretty good deal, but he ended up getting at me like, man, I know you the man behind the music. Won't you just go on and do it with Hitman, and let's try to make something happen. You know, he's like, I could sign directly to you. I won't sign Hitman, make him be part of the contract, but if you're willing to do it with him as RBL Posse, man, we can make it happen. He said, because I know you, man, you know, everybody tell me you the man behind the music. I know you did all the production and came with most of the ideas, and I think it can still happen. So we ended up still making it happen, and that's when Eye for an Eye came about. Yeah, I'll speak on it a little bit. Yeah, as far as the mistaken identity, as far as what I heard from the streets, like, you know, once we start doing our you know, once he got killed, you know, that's our block. So I started asking a few questions, but this didn't come back around until like a couple years later after his death. You know, a close friend of mine who still was over there dealing with the big block situation and all that, he was just like, yeah, man, you know, dudes is feeling hella bad that Mr. C got killed. Like, you know, that wasn't meant for him. Like, dudes was really mad about some shit Hitman had did. It was some shit supposed that took place on the block, and Hitman was supposed to be a part of it, or some shit, you know, that had happened where somebody got shot or something, and Hitman was supposed to have been there and supposed to have been a part of it, they were saying, and they basically was targeting Hitman, because that day when I drove down on Harbor, it was me and Mr. C in the car, and he had on a black hoodie and some blue Levi's jeans on and some Air Maxes. And Hitman had on the exact same thing almost, pretty much. He had on a different color Air Max, but he had on the blue jeans and the hoodie, and he was sitting on a pole with my sister up by the basketball court on Harbor. And when I drove down in Harbor, Hitman walked down there with us, walked down to the car and came talking to us. And I was like, man, you gonna ride out with me and Mr. C out to Oakland to go to my auntie house? And basically, Hitman got in the car, and Mr. C said, man, I'm gonna stay back, because like I said, he owed us money. He was like, man, I gotta pay y'all this money and this and that, so I'm about to go hustle. So he went right and sat right with he went walked back up on the hill where everybody hustled at, and my sister was up there. He sat right in the same spot where Hitman was sitting at. And but at this time, when we drove down, they was already plotting, from what I heard, that they was already plotting to try to come get him when he was sitting on the rail, but he walked off. So when they, I guess, was waiting for him to come back. So when he came back and sat back on the rail, Mr. C, it was Mr. C. So when they came running up shooting, they thought it was Hitman. So that's what I had heard, you know what I mean? So I don't know if that was true or not, or what, you know what I mean? I didn't think nothing of it. I'm like, man, regardless of if it was Hitman or Mr. C, it's still, you know, both of them was my young homies, so it didn't matter who it was, you know what I mean? You know, but yeah, that's what I had heard, man. Yeah, about a year or two later, dudes start, you know, getting a little scared, getting a little nervous, like, man, you know, we don't want to be a part of, man, we this and that, and yeah, it wasn't supposed to be for him, man. So they thought it'd be better, or, you know, make me feel a different way by, you know, it's supposed to be Hitman. But it wouldn't have made a difference, you know. It was a little different. The Eye for an Eye was totally different because I didn't do too much production on it. It had a different sound. It was more of a, how can I say, more of a mad album. You know, it was kind of like how I was feeling at the time, you know, pissed off at some dudes I grew up with who I feel like betrayed me. You know what I mean? Because I grew up with these dudes who supposedly had something to do with Mr. C's death. You know, I knew them all my life. The dudes I was up there with, the dudes that was on the cover with me on our first cover. You know, it just became like a split. You know, dudes started getting jealous. Some of the dudes on the cover, you know, people were asking, man, what they do? What song they rapping on? And this and that. You know, it's just like, it started from there. You know what I mean? And we kind of like, oh, nah, they just in the picture. And they start feeling some type of way. Some of them, not all of them, you know, because one of them on the picture is my kid's, my baby mom's brother. And we still tight to this day, but it's two of them, Booby on there, he started Big Block. And then one of the other dudes, he just became a rat. He was like, that motherfucker went deep cover on us. But yeah, it just got crazy. Like, it just caused a big old split up there on the hill, man. And you know, just one thing led to the next, man, and it just kind of made the album, like when I started working on Eye for an Eye, I was just like, I was just, you know, going through some things. I tried to make a statement, putting billboards all up and down on 3rd Street and not really concentrating on my markets. I was threw off. I was more zeroed in on trying to, you know, like feeling like, man, success gonna be the best revenge. You know, I ain't really finna go up there and down on them dudes because I've been knowing them all my life. I've been knowing them longer than I knew Mr. C, because at that time I was knowing Mr. C, he was up there probably like 4 years, and them I've been like childhood friends. And it's like, y'all betray me and, you know, get jealous of this dude because he came over here, got a position, and all these females coming around, they own him, they like him, they like, oh man, we like this dude, you know, black fine dude, oh, we own him and this and that. And then there's a lot of dudes didn't like that, you know what I mean? And yeah, that just kind of, that whole energy of that album was totally different than our first 2 albums. Our first 2 albums was more like, we come on that gangster shit, but it's more like the first album is up-tempo type beats, kind of got a party vibe to it. And the second album, we kind of mobbed out, had a little more of that C-funk, G-funk, or whatever you want to call it, mob sound to it, a lot of that stuff. It was it still had a little bit of a crossover vibe to where the females still like it, but on the Eye for an Eye, I lost all the females. It was like, I was on some other shit. I lost my eye in '89. I lost my eye in '89 during the Frisco gang war stuff. That's when I lost my eye, but I pretty much just used that as a statement for, you know, losing Mr. C. You know what I mean? But nah, that wasn't the time when I lost my eye. I lost my eye in '89. It was drive-by.